Welcome to Insights in Business. Joining me today is Amanda Rowley, who is a local business person here in Campbell River for many years now, and we are going to talk all things business and golf, and of course pre-COVID and post-COVID. So Amanda, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Amanda, you grew up in Campbell River.
I did.
So you've seen the evolution of Campbell River. How would you describe that?
It's been interesting. Like, I remember when I was a kid, like we had a malt we could go to. It wasn't a storage facility, so you could go down and, shop locally at the little stores that were in there. And now it's the businesses have spread out, I would say, more in Campbell River. Like Willow Point initially was just where people lived. You didn't shop in Willow Point. You didn't dine in Willow Point. You lived in Willow Point and you worked downtown. So it's been interesting to see the two areas, or the three areas of town kind of merge together. And now it's not unheard of to dine downtown or in Willow Point or shop in Willow Point and live downtown, kind of vice versa. So I think that's been good by bringing the community together as a whole and creating more areas for people to explore.
And one of the areas, one of the opportunities that I've had in my role over the last year is to sit in on meetings of all the community associations. So we've got Campbellton Neighborhood Association, which are about to put up a World War II plane as an entrance feature.
The Beaver, yeah.
And then, of course, the Downtown BIA and the Willow Point BIA and Pier Street.
Yes.
So it's, and you're right, I think it is quite spread out now, but it creates a neighborhood feel for anybody who lives in that area.
You bet. I think if you go to any other larger city center, you go to different neighborhoods. If you're looking for one aspect or one comfortability, you'll go to a certain neighborhood. In Campbell River, we still have the luxury. Those neighborhoods are maybe 7 minutes apart, not an hour and a half apart. So it's nice that you still can have this small town convenience, but go to those different neighborhoods for those different experiences.
And what have you seen in terms of the evolution of industry?
That's been very interesting. Like, growing up, we were always known as we were a logging community. We were all about fishing. We were all about mills. So we were very heavy industry based. It's been really reassuring and pleasant to watch the tourism industry grow and our industry focuses shift, fish farming and not just this logger forestry town, really taking on an identity of being able to identify with a broader spectrum of industries, not just a few condensed ones.
A year ago at the Forestry Week, I was quite surprised with their latest stat that only 7% of the people that live and work in Campbell River are either directly or indirectly associated with the forestry industry.
That's interesting. That's good to know. Well, I don't know if it's good or bad, but it's interesting to know because it shows the evolution of the community over the last X amount of years.
Right. Now, the evolution of the community has been the most pronounced over the last 12 to 13 years after the closure of the mill site. And in your role as a business person within Campbell River, especially over the last decade, how have you seen other industries kind of fill that void, whether it be tech or hospitality or...
Well, I think we realized that we had to, right? We had this one major industry that supported so many people in our community, and it's not even the direct support of the jobs that those people had, but then from that income they would earn at the mill, then they would then turn around and spend it in the community and all the other businesses. Mm-hmm. So we kind of had no choice but to go, what other things can we do? What other things can we bring in? Which I think was really good for us because it diversified us. We brought in tech. We did the huge big project with the special high fiber cable and things like that to be able to be that new hub and bring some different activities into town, which in turn is going to keep more of our locals here as students grow up, as they graduate. If we have a broader spectrum of industry in Campbell River that they can be employed in, they're more likely to stay local and not feel the need to move to Vancouver or to different provinces and things like that.
Right. Now, what has been the most surprising thing of Campbell River over the last decade? What has surprised you the most as a lifelong resident?
Cool, that's a tough one. I don't know. That's a really hard question. What has surprised me the most? I think that, God, I think like to take it as a two-part answer, the thing that I've enjoyed the most upon like building my business career in Kamloops River, not only in the business sector but the nonprofit sector, is seeing how people in Kamloops River are really always want to get behind a cause and really always want to do good by their community. But then on the flip side, it's also given me the opportunity to see and experience how many people don't educate themselves on projects that are going on in a correct manner and then become naysayers and put up roadblocks about things that they don't necessarily understand or know. They take an idea, and because it maybe not be their idea or may not directly benefit them, they don't take the step back to analyze and think about how it's going to affect the overall community.
Right. Okay. Now, you mentioned nonprofits, so let's talk about some of your nonprofit endeavors. What's your favorite activity outside of work to do?
In the nonprofit world, well, I'm a huge fan and supporter of the Kamloops River Community Foundation.
Okay.
I sat on the board for that for many years, up until I just took on my golf course project and kind of didn't feel like I could give the foundation the time it deserved. I like the foundation because it's such an umbrella, right? It's such a great way of supporting so many local nonprofits. And you're not just picking one area of interest that you're interested in. You actually have the ability to support any nonprofit through the actions of the foundation. I have a soft spot for anything kid related. And family related, so that would probably explain why I sit on the board for family services. And then cultivating young professionals and young business people within the community. So I think it's important for people coming out of school, out of high school, going into college, to realize that there is benefit in staying in Kamloops River, and Kamloops River has all of these great things it gets to offer to its local people. So doing things like the Young Professionals of Kamloops River helps kind of cultivate that section of the community as well.
Have you taken on any one-on-one mentors in your career?
I have not. Nothing official. I have kind of some casual people I speak to either at work or just that I know, but I've never taken on an actual technical mentorship, no.
Okay. So one of the recent shows that we did was with the Vancouver Island University and North Island College.
Yes.
They have now joined forces around work integrated learning, and they have launched a new hub that is public facing for employers with all sorts of supports for employers to put the jobs postings there, and then it gets fed out to all of the campuses down in Cowichan, Nanaimo, Powell River, Port Alberni, Comox Valley, Campbell River, Port Hardy.
Nice.
So it's basically everything north of the Malahat.
Yeah.
Because what they have been finding, and you might be finding this as well, is that there seems to be a disconnect between the younger people that want work and the employers who need workers and trying to get them together. Have you found that in your own business at all?
Yeah, we actually talked today. I had a YPCR board meeting earlier this afternoon, and we actually talked about that. Is because one of the girls on the board was saying, I have this position, I'm looking for this, and we had that exact conversation about so many people saying like, oh, I've had this position, do you know anybody? So having a platform like that is super beneficial for everybody, and of course we all know that anything online is definitely the way to go these days. So
yes. All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break. You're watching Insights in Business, coming to you from the Tidemark Theatre in the city of Campbell River. Our guest today is Amanda Rowley. We will be right back.
My hope is that we're able to come together differently as a community. It's important to know that as humans, it's not one person that makes a difference, it's all of us. This is a project that is about everyone. This is where maybe this is a small step because it's a bit of a system, but it's not the same system that we've utilized for years and years and years.
Welcome back to Insights in Business. Our guest today is Amanda Riley. Amanda, how many years, walk us through the last 10 years of professionally for you. What did that look like?
So everything in my life, I always relate back to the ages of my children and where I was and what house I lived in. I don't know why, it's kind of just my way of memorizing things. So I guess going back 10 years, so my sons would have been 3 and 5, and I would have been doing culture and community at Seymour Pacific and Broad Street Properties.
Okay.
Seymour Pacific Developments and Broad Street Properties. I should say that properly. I'll get my hand slapped. So that role was awesome. It was a great way for me to be a part of my family business and give back to my community, give back to all of our employees, and provide tons of internal staff events as well as external community events. Being that we span across 4 provinces, and I had a husband that was working in the company as well, who was traveling frequently, we kind of got to the point where we both couldn't be traveling all the time for our positions, with having young kids at home. So fast forward into 2017, which is when we purchased the property at the golf course, and that opportunity kind of came to play. So then I decided that, you know what, I kind of got to be the weakest link in my own department that I ran, not being able to be in the regions, not being able to be on the sites with all of the staff and really do that team building piece that was so important to me. So being that I always loved hospitality, which was kind of more my forte over construction development and property management, I happily decided to take on the golf course project for my family. And that's where I still am today. So, yeah.
Now, were you a golfer?
No.
So this has been a bit of a learning curve for you.
It certainly has. It's funny because not my first introduction to golf, but how I got more familiar with golf was organizing charity golf tournaments.
Of course.
So that was kind of my foot in the door, was charity golf tournaments. So to come from that side, nonprofit charity golf tournaments, to now this is my business that I'm trying to make profit at, as well as serve a purpose and support the community and support all of our guests and clients. It was a different way to kind of step back and look at things, but it also helped me to be able to see the full picture of it as well.
Okay. Now, through that transition, when you got into the golf world, what was the thing about that surprised you the most?
Golf as an industry has this weird competition where they're competing to race to the bottom. Golf courses, majority of golf courses are run by boards. Majority of golf courses are nonprofits and aren't ran to be successful businesses, profitable businesses. Not all of them, majority of them. Their board members are made up of their members of their golf course, who don't always make the best decisions based on the overall property.
Okay.
So it was interesting to learn the ins and the outs of golf. It was interesting to learn the dynamics and characteristics of golfers, of people that have memberships, and we aren't a member-based course. We have pass holders and public play. And then it's been interesting to see the dynamics of all of the vendors and things like that in the industry as well, and how they interact with your golf pros, which is another kind of dynamic to the golf world. So.
Okay. Now, there was a time, I'm not good with sense of time, of course, because of COVID. That's totally messed up everybody's sense of time.
Yeah.
But I want to say maybe 6 or 7 years ago, when the whole of golf seemed to be failing. It was, post Tiger Woods, there wasn't really anybody new coming up. And then again, I'm trying to put the timing on this, maybe 5 years ago, all of a sudden we saw this. There was all of a sudden 10 new young upstarts in the top 10.
Yeah.
That just came out of nowhere. You've got the Rory McIlroys, and you've got the Jordan Spieths, and the Dustin Johnstons, and all of a sudden golf became exciting again.
Yeah.
And it's not stopped. Like I tuned into the most recent, the PGA, and the top 10, half of them I had never heard of.
Golf is really an interesting sport in the aspect that you can play at any age. You really can. It's
Right.
definitely a sport you could start at 5 years old and you could play till the day you could not walk anymore. Yes, your game would have some peaks and valleys and changes over the years.
Right.
But it's such a great sport to get involved in because unless you have a shoulder injury or something major, there's no reason you can't play. The COVID world has been phenomenal for the golf industry. Golf is socially distancing by its natural nature. So we
Right.
didn't have to put in a ton of adjustments. We didn't have to affect the game or the pace of play to make it COVID safe to do. And I think a lot of people are recognizing that. Not only being outside and the outdoors is good for your mental health and your physical health. So we've really, in the last this last year, have seen a huge increase over previous years. But you're right, to go back to where you started off, is it really was starting to plateau. It was losing traction. People weren't interested in going out for these 6-hour rounds, and
Right.
that stereotypical kind of old man, this is what the businessmen do on the golf course as they go out there.
Right.
That perception had kind of taken over the industry. And then it took those young guys, as you mentioned, to kind of revamp it and go, no, look, I can wear a bright orange shirt with a matching belt, matching pants, and matching shoes and be a young, youthful, good-looking guy and get out
Right.
there and play the sport and kind of kick it back into gear. So
And we should also give equal time to the young women that have also emerged, because there has been, especially some Canadian women that are at the top of their game around the world.
I saw the most amazing thing in the end of August. We were fortunate enough to host the ladies pro amateur BC golf tournament. And the girl that won was 13 years old.
13.
13. They are golfing from the blacks, from the furthest tees, and she set a new course record of 64. It was absolutely amazing. Golf is an amazing sport too because it is a great sport and a great opportunity for women to get scholarships for college and university.
Right.
Yeah.
I knew that. Coming from Southern Ontario originally, way back in my early days, golf and scholarships down to the States was it was talked about a lot.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of young golfers, both male and female, that pursued that avenue
You bet.
to get to the Big Ten down there.
Yeah, there was a girl that golfed in the tournament that she's on a full scholarship to the University of Nevada for golf and majoring in kinesiology. She, during her practice round, was sitting in Velocity Lounge doing an online course, did her practice round, finished, went and took a test in her motorhome that she had set up in the parking lot, did some more practicing, and then went home the next day or went back to the motorhome that night, and then got up the next day, and I think she got 4 birdies that day. Like, just amazing, amazing athletes, both men and women. This summer I was fortunate enough to spend a lot of time with the women.
Yeah.
Next year we're hoping to get a male event, so we'll be able to see that a little bit more in depthly, but it was definitely an eye-opening experience to see such amazing young talent coming out of our own province.
Yes, awesome. We're going to take a short break. You're watching Insights in Business. We are coming to you from the Tidemark Theatre in the city of Campbell River. We will be right back. Welcome back to Insights in Business. Our guest today is Amanda Relly, and we are talking golf and business and youth and a very re-energized sport.
You bet. Yeah, it's been amazing to watch these youth come up. Like our youth camps just strictly on our own property have been full, partly because a lot of sports aren't happening right now, but I
Right.
think that's also been beneficial because it gives golf the opportunity to kind of revamp itself. At Velocity, we're fortunate that we get to introduce the technology side with golf, which is really good for the youth as well,
Right.
where they can come and use the Top Tracer and hit the balls. So I think a lot of organizations are going that way, even with their lesson packages and stuff like that, using things like TrackMan. So
I was just going to say, is there like a provincial organization or an island-wide organization? How does that work in golf?
Well, so it depends on what aspect you're looking at. So we
Okay.
have like for our golf professionals, so for the PGA, so there's a BC PGA. So my
okay.
golf pros are BC PGA members. So they
Okay.
have like a certification and they have X amount of things that they have to do. And then there's some people that are Canadian golf members or golf PGA members. And then for the golf courses themselves, I currently sit on board for Golf Vancouver Island, which is an organization
Okay.
that does golf packaging for the 14 major golf courses on the island.
Okay. And when you get together and you have that meeting, I'm assuming now it's virtual meetings. What was that first meeting with all of those other golf courses like in like the spring?
So we generally meet monthly. With COVID, we were meeting, I think there was a couple of months there that we met like bi-weekly just so we could stay on top of what was happening and things like that. There was a lot of courses on the island or throughout the province actually, that did stay open the entire time. But there was also quite a few that did close. Because Golf Vancouver Island is focused on not only delivering messages from like Allied Golf and Golf BC to the other courses, but
Right.
they host a lot of travel packages. So a lot of it was, how do we follow Destination BC's marketing? How do we follow Tourism Vancouver Island's marketing and promotion and things like that, and making sure that our messaging was aligned with a lot of those other bigger organizations.
On some of the tourism calls that we both have been on in our respective roles, the conversation has really focused on the fact that a lot of people from the Lower Mainland and from Southern Vancouver Island have made their way north. Did you find that at the course as well, or was it just the tour operators?
No, we had tons of visitors, especially from the Southern Island, which was amazing to see. People making that trip over the Malahat to come and see what Central Island and North Island had to offer or have to offer, and I think we're going to continue to see that. With hosting the tournament, there was a ton of people from Vancouver that we had coming over, and now they've all gone back to their local clubs and really
Okay.
get to come back and deliver the message that Vancouver Island is here and Campbell River is here and it is a destination. And yes, you can golf, but look at all these other things that you can do while you're there.
Right, hike and ski and swim and
Bet.
kayak and paddleboard and
All in the same day.
all in the same day, 365 days a year, really,
Yeah.
if you wanted to. Now, when you're talking to the other courses around Vancouver Island, say in the last month, what has been the sense that you've gotten from that conversation in terms of where the industry sits today?
They are busier than ever. I just got an email from the National Golf Course Owners Association, which sends us the stats of not only the BC golf courses, but the Canadian-wide golf courses. And every single golf course reported in Canada showed an increase in numbers for 2020 over 2019. And a dramatic
Wow.
increase, yeah.
Okay.
So their tee sheets are packed and everybody's happy, so.
And now a lot of them are going to get stopped by snow, but not here on Vancouver Island.
No, we definitely have a special thing here on the island where we don't get a lot of snow, which appeals to a lot of people still from Alberta, right? Their courses will probably shut down here any day now for frost at least, if not
Yeah.
snow, whereas we don't have that. We'll get frost delays, and unless it's really snowed or it's got really cold for an extended period of time, pretty much most courses are always open.
Yeah, I think it was last Thanksgiving that Calgary got its first big dump of snow, so it's not far
Not
for
far
them.
away, not at all.
Well, that's really interesting that those numbers are up right across Canada. Did that surprise you?
Not really. Just seeing how the numbers up were or locally and island-wide, it didn't surprise me. I think with COVID, one of the things that everybody's learned is to slow down and to take a step back and go and enjoy what you have in your own communities or in your own regions. And people have more time. So the idea of going to spend 4.5 hours playing a round of golf isn't so far-fetched because you're not running around crazy all the time. You're not commuting for sports events. You're not commuting for work. You're not commuting for school. So you have a lot more time to do those personal enjoyment activities.
Now, in talking to or in getting that report from across Canada, is there any discussion at all about sort of coming together with messaging moving into the new year for spring 2021?
On the national level, I haven't heard anything. The provincial level, yes. So golf runs under a couple different organizations. We have Allied Golf BC, which we were fortunate enough to be the first industry that came up with the best practices on behalf of the entire industry. That got submitted to Dr. Bonnie Henry and WorkSafe. So they came out with an amazing, I want to say it was probably 25-page document that said these are all the things we recommend, and got that positively endorsed. So those organizations have been really good to keep us like in good standings and safe. And the rest is just tourism. So we follow all of the tourism.
Right. So Destination BC and Destination Canada.
You
And when do you think that the organization for Vancouver Island, the 14 courses that you sit on the board for, when do you think you'll start having the conversation about really driving home that message that, well, you can't play soccer and you can't play volleyball and you can't play basketball, but you can golf?
I think they've already started to do that a little bit, but it's one of those messages that you still have to be subtle about, right? Like you can't, because it's caused a pandemic to add these things, you don't want to be unemotional about it, right? Because people still really do have those passions. So it's a very, very gray area. You can positively encourage people, but you don't want to say like, oh, you can't do all these other things. So we want to be the second choice. You know, amongst my peer group, I kind of joke that I've never been so excited to be somebody's second choice. But that's not something I would promote in the business world by any means.
Right.
So it is sensitive, right? You don't want to, as you're building yourself and building your business, you never want to say things that may offend or harm other industries.
Right.
So,
but it is important for people to find physical outlets.
you bet.
Right? And golf really is that outdoor, safely distanced.
Totally.
It's
funny. One of the new practices we did put in place is we got new flagpoles. So when you putt your ball, you're not pulling the pin, so there's no touching, and you're not sticking your hand in the cup because we have our cups. So you putt your ball in, and now the flagpole has a little lever. So you just take your putter and lift the lever, and it pops your ball out. And now everybody's like, "These are great. Why haven't we had these in the industry forever?" Saves my back, and everybody's super happy. So some of those changes that we did put in place because of COVID, we'll actually probably keep for the future now.
right. Awesome. So looking ahead to 2021, we are almost out of time. So what are you looking forward to the most for the golf industry moving into next spring?
I'm excited to see those people that came out this year on a whim to come back next year because they want to. Because they had a memorable experience, because they shared a special moment with their son or their daughter or their spouse or things like that. And really them starting to have their other activities come back into play, but still bring in golf into that equation. And then watch all the industries kind of share the pool of people and grow together, and not just say, oh, I had nothing else to do, so I decided to come golfing. Like, oh, I had such a great time last year golfing, I wanted to come back and try again.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
Really appreciate the update on golf, and I'm actually surprised that the numbers are up right across Canada. That's a pleasant surprise.
Yeah.
And it's a business that's been able to sustain itself through the global pandemic, which is super important.
Yes, you bet.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You've been watching Insights in Business, coming to you from the Tidemark Theatre in Campbell River. Please join us again.